Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Samaan. Great being back with you as we continue in our series Unmasking Narcissism. I hope you've been enjoying it. The pathways to healing from the mask of the false self, that other person, and the fragile core beneath that facade, that fake front. We don't like fake fronts. Even in ourselves, we don't like being fake. We want to be real. And unfortunately, narcissism is one of those conditions that leans in that direction for various reasons we've been talking about. Today we're talking about unmasking the narcissistic parent. Oh my gosh. So many stories, an innumerable amount of stories from adults about their childhood with their narcissistic parents. What can you say about it? You can say, stay close to the Lord and heal. And the Lord loves you no matter what's happened to you in your childhood. And He's got a hand out for you to help walk you through and heal through those things. And we're going to talk today about identifying some of those characteristics of the narcissistic parent. And certainly it's just a finite amount. There's so much to talk about. And in my future book, Unmasking Narcissism, I'll have that in more detail. And then in part 2 of this section on unmasking the narcissistic parent, we're going to talk about the what do you do about it? The adult child of the narcissistic parent. How do you heal? And we'll be talking about that in part 2, and I'm sure you'll enjoy that as well. Before we get into the subject today, let me continue to plug my book, Unmasking Addiction. It's faith-based community initiative type of book where faith-based initiatives and organizations play a crucial role in the community support and recovery efforts. The book is a valuable tool for those groups, whether it's a support group, a home group, any type of get-together, enhancing the effectiveness of the groups and addressing addiction. So it's a way to talk about addiction when you have a book, and it explains it A to Z, but also current research is in the book, so it's up to date, and that's important. So please consider that if you think it'll be helpful for yourself or someone else, and go out and buy it. And I will be always available to answer questions. You can text me, write me, email me, or call me, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the subject. Well, getting back to our subject today, unmasking the narcissistic parent, in part 1, when love hurts behind the closed doors. And that's really what happens. Love hurts. Deception cloaked in morality. Love that controls instead of nurtures. It's not genuine love. To the narcissist, they may think it's genuine love, but their thinking, their perspectives are distorted. They've learned along the way to think the truth is a lie, the lie is a truth, and to them, they're not doing anything wrong. And to try to tell them they are is sometimes fruitless. Other times it stirs things up, and be prepared for punishment, for discussing it, for bringing about any doubts. But you know what? Some of them get well, and that's why we don't want to give up hope in a narcissist. We want, especially if it's a narcissistic parent, we want to keep trying to help them to realize that they can do better. And the best way is be a good example. So healing begins with truth. Without truth, there can't be healing. And so we have to rationalize these things, not only in our minds, but in the minds of that parent, in helping them to recognize what is truth and what is a lie. Obviously, it's like a drug addiction, and in our previous discussions, we talked about the possibility of narcissism being an addictive behavior, and we'll get into that in further detail along the way. it is like an addictive behavior because there's denial. And with that, there's intoxication. And with that, all the other things that go along with addiction. It's hard to stop. It's hard to change. It's hard to see the truth until you hit a final bottom. And there are a lot of false bottoms that occur. Even with a narcissistic parent, I've seen narcissistic parents who have gotten better, who have repented, as we would say, who have changed in their later years, becoming grandparents and suddenly seeing things differently, improving on things because they worked on themselves. So I've seen improvements there. It is possible. But for many, it's not. And so you have to keep that buffer to stay safe. And that's why it's important to talk about it. That's why it's important to recognize it. Deception is something they're very good at. Manipulation is something they're very good at. And it's not necessarily a conscious thing. It's an automatic thing, because as they learn it along the way, they get better and better at it, and it becomes who they are. The mask of virtue. When love hurts behind closed doors, it is a mask. It's a pretend. It's a deception cloaked in morality. Love that controls instead of nurtures. Healing begins with truth, so we got to start somewhere in that process of healing. When you're a child, your brain is it hasn't fully grown yet. So how can you rationalize these things? You can't. That makes the child the victim. It makes the child a pawn in the hands of a narcissistic parent. So who's going to help that child? That's the tricky part. That's the hard part. Grandparents, possibly. Friends, possibly. Other parents, possibly. Siblings, possibly. Relatives. But most narcissistic parents aren't going to allow that. They're going to maintain that control, that covering, that bubble, to maintain their dominance, their way of thinking and doing. And watch out if you get in their way. Narcissistic parents often appear virtuous, but conceal motives of control and ego gratification, selfishness. The mask of virtue creates confusion and emotional bondage within families. So that mask of virtue is very important. It stands out, and you can see it standing out when they're wanting to appear good in the community, in their neighborhood, at the child's school, or at other activities that are occurring. And watch out if the child doesn't make them appear good, doesn't make them appear virtuous. Outward godliness, inward manipulation. The Bible tells us holding to a form of outward godliness, religion, although they've denied its power, for their conduct nullifies their claim of faith. Avoid such people, the Bible tells us, and keep far away from them. Okay, that's in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 5. So it's not me saying that, it's the Bible saying that. Keep far away from narcissists. Now, there's going to be those that are going to say, you shouldn't do that. They need help. Yes, they need help. So you need to know who's safe, who's not safe, who's in that spectrum from mild to severe of narcissism that we've talked about previously. In that mild to moderate range, are they in that mild to moderate range? Okay, if they are, then you got a chance of helping them out, leading a way for them. There's some hope there. And they're usually still feeling guilt, still feeling remorse over here to a degree, and yet they're still very egocentric and selfish, but very damaged from their childhood, from the issues of their perhaps being victims of a narcissistic parent. Whatever their issues, there's still a goodness in their heart. It's still visible in them for those that have a good heart. As those that are just plain hardened, and that you're going to see that too. Look for that. Is there a good heart there? If you see some softness there, then they're in this mild, moderate range. Once they cross over, then we're in the moderate to severe range, and this is the range of the Jezebel spirit, as the Bible would say, the range of sociopathy, the range of loss of guilt and remorse. They've seared their consciences at this point from moderate to severe. Those are the ones you kind of want to stay away from. So when it says stay away, stay away from those. These over here, there's still some hope, and they can be safe at times, but you got to stay alert with them, because that narcissism, that entitlement, that it's all about me thing is going to well up there, and you have to know to set the boundaries so you can stay safe. The narcissistic parent presents as morally superior, often admired in the community or the church, while privately invalidating control and wanting to have more control over their children. This false godliness substitutes appearance for authenticity, distorting love into moral performance. It's a distortion of love, and it hurts. So when love hurts, what happens? It's conditional. Conditional love, absence of nurturing care. How can you have nurturing care if love is controlling and selfish? If it's conditional, it's not going to be nurturing. It can't possibly be nurturing. Child serves the parent's ego. True love builds, not binds. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, when it talks all about love, but just a little short section here, love is not intrusive, it's not rude, it's not selfish, it's not irritable or hot-tempered. And love doesn't hold grudges or keep record of wrongs. Love takes no pleasure in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Love always protects, the Bible says, always heals, always restores, builds up trust, hopes, and perseveres. And I like the word always. It's not once in a while. It's not when it's convenient. It's not conditional. It's always. And that's how we're to be as parents, aren't we? If you had a parent that was that way, I'm sure you thrived. And if you didn't have a parent that way, I'm sure you wish you did have a parent that was that way. And I'm sure you strive to be a parent that is that way. Always loving, always kind, always whatever. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. But when we do, we always say we're sorry. Hopefully, always say we're sorry. Narcissistic parents express affection tied to obedience and success. Love becomes transactional. What are you going to do for me? I'm going to do this if you do that for me. It's based on child's ability to reflect the parent's glory. Such love wounds the soul and corrupts the divine model of unconditional grace. A narcissistic love is corrupted, and they don't know it. They don't realize it. All they can think about is protecting themselves. And we've talked about that quite a bit previously. Hidden needs behind that narcissist is self-protection and many other things. They're rooted in deep insecurity. It may be a result of traumas, or it may be a result of other things. But that insecurity is what drives them to protect, to be self-protective. And in being self-protective, you're selfish. It's just kind of normal. If we're protecting ourselves, we're being selfish. We're thinking of ourselves. However, they're living in it constantly. If they're living in it constantly, they can't see outside of it. And if they can't see outside of it, then they're in a constant state of self-protection, caring for oneself. Emotional wounds masked by grandiosity. And grandiosity is pretentiousness, imposing oneself over others. Child becomes a mirror of parent's worth. Beneath the parent, there's self-assurance. And beneath that self-assurance is fragility. They're very fragile on the inside. That's why you can't say anything to them that could be considered a threat to their ego. And if you do, watch out, they're going to punish you. Their pursuit of admiration compensates for unresolved emotional emptiness. The child's identity becomes collateral damage in the parent's pursuit of perfection. What's perfect to me may not be perfect to you, but what's perfect to them better be perfect to you. And they try to form everyone around that belief. Common behaviors that you're going to see with narcissistic parents are love that must be earned. Role reversal and control is dominant. I think one of the most damaging things that narcissistic parents do to their children. Now, let me explain that a little bit. Role reversal in a parent-child relationship is a situation where the child is expected to take on responsibilities or emotional burdens that properly belong to the parent. Every once in a while, you ask your older child to take care of the younger child. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Every once in a while, you ask for a little help here or there. That's fine. That's teaching them responsibility, helping them to learn to take on the chores or things like that. Unfortunately, the narcissistic parent goes overboard with that. In family systems theory, a term often used is parentification. A child is placed in the role of caregiver, emotionally or practically, for the parent or siblings. In a role reversal situation, a child gives emotional care to a parent. The parent doesn't give that care back. In families with a narcissistic parent, role reversal can be especially pronounced because the parent is self-absorbed, exploitative, and demands the child meet their emotional needs. Again, selfishness, self-protection. What can you do for me? This is what you should do for me. The child becomes the emotional confidant or mirror for the parent's fragile self-esteem. The child handles the household responsibilities, younger siblings, or parents' emotional regulation, calming the parent when the parent gets upset. The child loses the opportunity to simply be a child. Their developmental needs get sidelined. So what happens when that occurs? Well, the narcissistic parents often view their children as extensions. It's an extension of themselves rather than an independent person. They don't get to develop their own, the child doesn't get to develop their own identity. They may feel incapable of giving true emotional support or may project their own needs onto their child. This sets a stage for child abuse, emotional abuse. The child can't compensate properly. The literature identifies many consequences of role reversal parentification, especially in narcissistic family systems. The child may develop a low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, difficulties with boundaries, identities, and healthy relationships in adulthood. A sense of lost childhood. I see that so much with many clients. One's own needs were put aside in favor of caring for the parent. In a household with narcissistic parent, instead of the parent providing emotional support, the parent may rely on the child for validation. You need to make me proud. And the child becomes the caregiver, emotionally and practically. The parent abdicates the nurturing role and the child takes it on. Hence, role reversal. Very damaging. And there's a lot of stories out there, and I'm sure you might have some yourself. And again, it's normal when we do it within reason, when we're teaching, when we're instructing, when we're helping our child to develop properly. So they're getting back as well. They're getting love, they're getting nurture, they're getting reward, they're getting the attention and acceptance and all those things that they need with the loving parent. But the narcissistic parent can't give those things back. And so there's emptiness there when the child is serving the narcissistic parent. And what does the child often have to do? Well, they often have to deal with the emotional outbursts in helping that parent to calm down or in protecting themselves from that emotional outburst, which then teaches the child emotional dysregulation, emotional outbursts themselves. These distinctive behaviors define narcissistic parenting. Affection based on performance, children becoming caretakers, constant comparisons, intrusion, and rage. Each reinforces fear and dependence rather than trust and freedom. So tell me, how does a child thrive in that atmosphere? How does he develop, he or she? How do they develop in that atmosphere? They're the supply to the narcissistic parent, whether it's the child or the spouse. They're supply. They meet the needs of that parent. Relationships are viewed transactionally. How many stories I hear of, let's say, a wife comes in and complains about her husband demanding that she cook every meal, every night when he comes home, even if she's sick. There's no excuse. Now wait a minute, that's going overboard, isn't it? Not to the narcissistic parent, not to the narcissistic husband or wife who has those high expectations of self-gratification. It's for me. There's a lack of empathy, so they have no empathy. They can't be in your shoes. They can't understand your needs because their needs are far greater. How dare you have a need? And so they can't comprehend that. Well, I was sick. I couldn't make it that night. And he got so angry and rageful and threatened this and threatened that. That's just one little example. That's what happens. It's exaggerated. Whenever anything is exaggerated, it's not good. And that's always should be a red flag to us. Whenever we see something exaggerated, there's a red flag, something is wrong. Let's look a little deeper into whatever's going on there before we jump in head first. So relationships are viewed transactionally. What are you going to do for me? And then you get the crumbs to keep you doing it for me. Image preservation overrides connection. looking good. So the narcissistic parent, as we said, has to look good in one way or another. There's those different subgroups that we talked about of narcissists. Well, one way or another, they have to look good and feel good. And so if you do that, if you make them look good, if you make them feel good, they'll give you the crumbs to keep you along. They're the puppeteers, and you have to obey the pulling of the strings. In narcissistic systems, family members are used to feed the parent's self-image. Love becomes conditional upon safeguards, upon the safeguard for the parent, upon your usefulness for the parent. And those who fail to comply are discarded emotionally and socially. No, what's that story with Cinderella? Yeah, there you go. There's a good example of a narcissistic parent. You stay home, we're going to the ball. You need to clean, so that's a, hey, you're not being useful. You're not making me look good. So you stay home. We're going to go out and party, or we're going to go have fun, or whatever it might be. It's a lasting effect on people. So it's a lasting effect on children into their adult life. Formation of a false self occurs, because if I can't develop my own identity, I have to develop some kind of identity. I have to be seen somehow. So either I'm going to develop mom or dad's narcissistic identity as my false self, or I'm going to have to develop some other identity. Well, sometimes they may develop a rebel identity. I'm going to be I'm not strong, I'm not in control at home, but I'm going to be in control everywhere else. So they become bullies at school, or they become rebels, antisocial, against everything that's normal, against all authority. So that's their false self. Even if it's unreasonable, it doesn't matter, I'm against it. Or another false self of just being a people pleaser or a codependent, not feeling comfortable in any way, in not having relationships, so I have to maintain relationship no matter how, and be the doormat. So they actually continue their childhood victimization into their adult relational life. And chronic self-doubt and anxiety develops. It comes out of that. Distorted image of God's love also comes out of that, because God is a representation of the authority figure, a representation of the narcissistic parent. Makes it a lot harder for that child to see God any other way. And so you have some churches that might be very legalistic and rigid churches. Where does that come from? Well, it's possible it comes from that childhood image of you do what I want, you meet my needs, or you're imperfect, you're not good enough, and we're going to kick you out. I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but churches can be that way depending on the leader, the authority figure, and then who's going to stick around, who are comfortable with that environment, that family system environment. And so they stick around. Before you know it, you have a small church filled with similar people, and no one feels comfortable visiting it, and it doesn't grow. That's not Jesus, though, is it? That's not what God tells us. Children learn to survive by hiding authentic emotions. It's not safe to be authentic in the home of a narcissistic parent. So they hide their authentic emotions. They develop a mask of their own. Spiritually, they may equate God's character with their parents' conditional love, obscuring the truth of divine compassion. So what comes out of that? Emotional confusion and dissonance. Public virtue versus private dysfunction. Am I the problem? There's a syndrome that some people call it, am I the problem syndrome? Psychological and spiritual distortion comes out of that. The child's pain is invalidated by the parent's public image, creating emotional dissonance, confusion, conflict, internal conflict. And what happens with internal conflict? Truth wants to come up. Reality wants to come up. Conscious mind says, no, that's not safe. Keeps it down. The pressure is pushing down. As the pressure is pushing up, the greater the pressure, what's sandwiched in between is neurosis, what they used to call neurosis. What now they basically call it anxiety. It's that pressure, that dissonance, that inner conflict of right and wrong, yes or no, do this or don't do this. And that dissonance creates angst on the inside, and neurotic individuals, anxious individuals, or individuals that are afraid to make decisions, afraid to take risks, or step out against popular opinion, for example. They're prisoners of the soul. Joy replaced by fear and control. Emotional imprisonment. The Bible tells us, fathers, don't provoke or irritate or exasperate your children with demands that are trivial or unreasonable or humiliating or abusive, nor by favoritism or indifference. You can find that in Colossians chapter 3, verse 21. Don't do those things, the Bible tells us. But the narcissistic parent does all those things. So then what does that tell us? Well, it's telling us it's not right. Don't do it. Stop it. Narcissistic homes suffocate the spirit. They create prisoners of the soul. Children learn to survive rather than thrive. Their emotional lives confined by shame and criticism, fear. Healing begins when truth confronts tyranny with grace. And that's unconditional love. And what comes out of that home with the narcissistic parent? So if you just think of the common sense of it, okay, to be safe, I'm going to do exactly what dad or mom is saying to do. I'm going to be perfect, do perfect, make them look good, and all this. I'm going to play baseball, kick the football, play basketball. I'm going to do all these things that's going to make dad shine and proud of me and all of that. I'm going to get straight A's, be on the honor roll. I'm going to become a doctor, lawyer, banker. But what if I can't? I'm kind of goofy. I'm not very athletic. I'm smart, but I'm smart in these other areas. I'm not getting the straight A's because I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in space or science or something in particular, but not these other things. They'll thrive later in life, but right now, not getting the A's in school, so not making that parent look good. Well, what happens? Well, you're not making me look good, so we're going to single you out, and you're going to become the black sheep of the family. That's the black sheep dynamic. Conditional approval breeds scapegoats. Emotional cutoff and triangulation occur. Remember, we've spoken about triangulation, that the narcissist has to stay at the top, and he pits one against the other and changes sides to keep on top. And that triangulation occurs in the home, in the family system with the narcissistic parent, pitting one sibling against the other, the parent against the child against the parent. God's love affirms every child's worth. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex, the Bible tells us. Children labeled black sheep bear the family's pain, and it's an unspoken pain. That pain of insecurity of that narcissistic parent. They're not going to say they're in pain. They're not going to say they're afraid. They're not going to say they're so insecure. But they project it onto that black sheep child. Everything bad about them goes on to that child. Their resistance exposes dysfunction. The child's resistance exposes the dysfunction, but isolates them emotionally. Through Christ's acceptance, the rejected become restored and chosen. How's that going to happen, though, for a child? So hopefully grandma takes them to church, or grandpa, or aunt or uncle, or friends. So don't hesitate to pick up the neighbor's kids, take them to church with your kids, if they're friends. You know, take them, help them out. They may have great parents. Parents maybe have to work or something like that. Can't take them to church. Hey, you pick them up, you take them. But what happens when you have two narcissistic parents, a mom and a dad? That's double trouble, isn't it? Believe me, that's double trouble. Two narcissistic parents multiply the harm. Children adapt, conform, and become scapegoats very easily, very quickly in that home. Faith and counseling offer escape, if they can get it. If they can learn the faith and get the counseling, which those parents may do it because they're forced to, or because they're going to look good by doing it until the child is getting something out of it, and then they're going to cut it off. When both parents display narcissistic traits, children face near total loss of emotional safety. Yet God redeems even these legacies through grace, truth, and renewed identity. So there's redemption and accountability with God. Pride and shame are distortions, twin distortions of identity. Healing through truth and repentance is what we want, or change. Repentance is change. Grace rebuilds what pride destroys. So the Bible says in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 31 to 32, in the New Living Translation, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. And what's evil behavior? Well, evil behavior is anything that's going to hurt others. Putting it simply, that's what it is. If it's going to hurt others, it's evil behavior. If it's going to be damaging, it's evil behavior. If it's against God, it's evil behavior. It's not good, in other words. Whenever God is doing something, it benefits everyone. Are you benefiting everyone in the family? Are you benefiting all the children and your partner, your spouse? If you are, you're doing good. If you're not, there's some evil going on there. Identify what it is and stop it. So evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you. The narcissistic patterns mirrors humanity's fall, self-exaltation and shame. Redemption restores divine design through humility, forgiveness, and truth-centered transformation, or truth-centered change. Facing the truth the reality. And part of recovery for narcissism or for addictions is going to a treatment center and learning the truth, identifying what are the lies that you've been believing, what are the that has given you misperceptions of life, and what's the truth. So you can start relearning or transforming yourself into a new identity, a new person, getting rid of that false self, whether it's an addictive self or a narcissistic self or something else, making it get weaker and weaker as you're identifying the lies, replacing them with the truths. Healing and reclaiming is important. Naming abuse starts there. It starts there. I got to name it first. Naming abuse as a spiritual act is helpful because it is spiritual. It's spiritual warfare, as we would put it. What sorrow for those who say that evil is good and good is evil, the Bible tells us. Rebuilding boundaries and identity is important. Discovering the Father heart of God. And that Father heart says, I have loved you with everlasting love. That's what a father is supposed to be like, or a mother. Everlasting love, unconditional love. And when you don't have that in the home, it's hard to see it coming from God. So you have to learn it somehow, and some do learn it on their own, and others learn it by watching others who have learned it and are practicing it. Freedom begins with awareness. By recognizing manipulation and inviting divine truth, survivors relearn love. They relearn trust and self-worth. God's unconditional love becomes the ultimate corrective to narcissistic distortion. So there are frameworks to transformation. Family systems and biblical reparenting is important. The Arno profile system that I use and the transformational or transformation prayer ministry are both helpful tools that I use in my practice. Identifying who are you? The APS identifies your temperament, what you're born with, that initial foundation of who you are. And the character then is built on your interactions. That's the walls, the struts of the home. And it's covered by the personality. And if the struts, the walls are strong and well built, the personality is going to reflect the temperament, and it's going to be strong and well built. And when the stress and the winds blow, it doesn't sway. So you have more control over those mood swings. Fewer mood swings, hopefully no mood swings. But learning that base identity of who am I, then, gosh, it's okay to be me. I don't have to be like dad or mom or somebody else. I can be me. That's getting rid of that mask, taking it away. I don't have to wear this anymore. I can be who I am. So when we learn that base temperament of who we are, and the key to that is most people don't have a single temperament, which is why the paper tests don't work very well. It's got to be the digital, and the Arno profile system is the digital one, the only one that I'm aware of that is accurate 96% of the time. So it identifies a combination that you can have of temperaments in three main need areas. Those paper tests can't do that, and that's why they're not very accurate. So when you can identify, hey, socially, I'm a loner, and I'm a melancholy temperament, and I don't like getting around. I don't want to talk to anybody. But in affection, I really want close friends. It could be very different, or it could be the reverse. Or there could be something else in there in play, like the choleric in the control area. That's very strong, very goal-oriented, and it can conflict with those other two as well if there's combinations. So we learn that, and we learn how to build the walls, put the struts in healthy places, replacing some of the weaker ones with stronger ones and so on, so the personality gels with the rest of who you are. And transformation prayer ministry, identifying those faulty beliefs from the past, identifying why am I overreacting to this little thing that keeps happening, and I keep overreacting and I can't stop myself from it. It's coming from back there. And so we identify where it's coming from, and we identify the lies that came in there. It's right and wrong thinking, and it's identifying what does God say about this? What's the Bible have to say about it? And so we turn to God. What is your help with this? What do you have to say about it? What do you want me to know that happened when I was 5 years old or 6 years old? And before you know it, those impressions start to come very quickly. After a while, it's just kind of automatic. And suddenly you're not overreacting anymore to this little thing that's going on. And you thought that was the problem. So there's other tools that work. But from a false identity to Christ-centered wholeness, it takes some work, takes some effort. Integrating psychological insight with biblical renewal offers deep transformation or change. Through clinical tools and spiritual restoration, individuals exchange self-deception for authentic identity in Christ. Well, to kind of sum this up, it's what's on the inside that counts. It's not the outside, it's not what you're seeing, what's on the inside. Confidence masking fear and fragility. That could be on the outside. So you gotta, what is it masking? What's on the inside? You gotta get to know the person. Sometimes it's hard to get to know somebody unless you learn more about them. To learn more about them, you have to interact more with them. So there is a point of interaction and a point of setting boundaries. Breaking generational cycles is important. If you see it in the generations of the family and it's not good and it hasn't been working, you want to break that cycle. The Bible tells us He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds, healing their pain and comforting their sorrow. Psalm 147, verse 3. The conclusion invites reflection and hope. Always keep hope. Always be hopeful. Even when bad things are happening, find one good thing in that bad event. Identify that one good thing. Focus on the one good thing, and that'll help get you through whatever the bad thing is. Beneath the parent's facade lies pain, but also potential for redemption. God calls us all to replace pride with humility and control with love. Well, I hope that's been helpful for you today. Unmasking the Narcissistic Parent. We're going to continue in part 2 next time, where we're going to talk about honoring yourself without dishonor, biblical wisdom for dealing with toxic parents. I hope you'll join us. Please give us a thumbs up. It keeps us motivated, and I understand it keeps us in the YouTube, whatever, on the rankings or anything like that. So if you can, give us that thumbs up if you're getting something out of it. I'm sure you're getting a little something out of it. May your troubles be minor, blessings more, and happiness come through your door. God bless.